Welcome, beloved hearts, into the loving embrace of the divine. I would like to invite you to bring your awareness to your heart, where we can truly connect as one. I am Katrina Armstrong, and I stand before you today as a testament to the power of the divine. I embarked on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth, all of which has birthed the alchemical movement that is Divinity in Action, that I am ecstatic to share with you here. Allow us to guide you through the wisdom of our esteemed leaders and uncover the secrets of the universe to unlock your true potential, as I had done in my life when I embraced the Christ consciousness and ascended into higher expressions of my soul potential. I'll share with you the teachings and wisdom that have helped me to transcend from my earthly bounds and realize the true expression of my soul. I'll be joined by some of the most compassionate and authentic spiritual leaders worldwide who also experience divinity in action. Allow us to share our insights and experiences. I invite you to join me on this journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth. Together we'll break free from past programming and conditioning and fully embrace our true selves. Join me in welcoming the radiant Elayne Dalty, who has been on a path of passionate service for the past 20 years, inspiring women around the world to unleash their leadership gifts and step into their full potential. She specializes in helping women tap into their deepest wisdom, enabling them to harness their own transformational power to be more effective and whole in every aspect of their lives. She is the founder of the Priestess Presence Temple, a sisterhood of over 80,000 women around the world, and the Red Podcast, a place for bold, inspired, outrageously courageous, and just a tad bit naughty women, leaders together to talk about all the things that are most important in our lives. You can find her at ElayneCalady.com or priestesspresence.com. Wow. What a true honor to be here with you, Elayne. What an honor to be in your presence, to feel and to know all that you have already brought through to bring your divinity into action. So many hearts that you've already touched. My being is just vibrating and so much love and appreciation and joy. And I know that this conversation is so important in this now for where we're being called to and what's being enlivened or enlivened or being enriched within our beings. That's being asked to be brought out into the world. So just wanted to begin here to speak my honor and my gratitude as we open this field and open this conversation. And I would love to begin just by sharing one of the things that really spoke to me was this global rite of passage that you're talking about that we're currently in. So I would love to hear more about this as we kind of ease into this field together. So much rich, juicy, beautiful transmissions already going out.
Oh, well, thank you for your graciousness, Katrina. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm very moved by your invitation to speak and to be spoken. So global rite of passage, right? You know, for me, in my heart, when you ask that question, what I feel is that there are so many of us who have been called to be here at this particular moment in time. And whatever you believe about reincarnation or not, or you don't have to believe what I believe. However, what I sense and what I feel in my kind of blood, breath, and bones in my being is that there is an incredible awakening through the roots of our being to the remembrance of why we came here at this particular moment. And I think that this beautiful invitation that we have through the interwebs, the way that we're now connecting, Katrina, through this portal has been an absolute renaissance, has been a completely activating, catalyzing technology, sacred technology, truly, to connect us into others who are walking the path of what I might be calling planetary midwives. And so what I'll say about a planetary midwife is, I think there are those of us who know that we're called to hold the space between the old world that is dying, the old paradigms, the old patriarchal world that really has been and is continuing to be dismantled and is no longer working in service to the humans who are here on this planet, right? Or to the vast majority of us. And we are being called to stand with one foot in that world, the crumbling, dismantling that's going on, the things that are not working, the pain, the suffering, the sorrow, all of that, to be able to hold space for that, while simultaneously stretching with another foot standing in what is emerging. And I think that bridging between the old world and the new world is one that has become more and more conscious in the minds and hearts of many, many, many more people, and will continue to do so over the next, epoch of time that we're moving through as we really start to gain momentum in this Aquarian age, in the time that we're now stepping into, time of social networking, the time of coming together to create the world that we're visioning, as well as honoring the world that is dying. So there is this unique kind of thing that I'm seeing in the communities that I serve, whereby we're being called forward into this, what is an incredible vocation and also a very difficult vocation. It's not an easy place to stand in the world right now, because there is so much that we can look at and see that is spiraling into a vortex of toxicity, or a vortex of hatred, a vortex of separation, of all the things that are in the shadow, whilst at the same time holding the vision of what's possible, right? So that job, if you like, is being handed to those of us who are putting our hands up and saying, okay, that's me. I know that's what I'm here to do. And so for me, for the last, I would say, for 30 years, I've been traveling this path, but really for the last 10 years, I've been actively gathering those souls together in my own community in Priestess Presence, where I've been identifying this word priestess and what does that really mean? And what does it mean to come to temple? And what does it mean to consciously use our own consciousness to shift and catalyze the changes that we want to see? So that's that rite of passage is incredibly powerful in our Earth's trajectory, right? In our history, that is a history of eras. If we look at it from that point of view, then we're at the end of an era and the beginning of a new. And these nodal points, when there's a seismic shift, when there is a deep and profound shift from one system of thought to a new system of thought and being, are always times where I feel like those of us who are being called to hold that space are called forward. And that is now.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So beautifully put. I really appreciate your way of articulating that. And as you're speaking, it's really bringing me into that center point. And when I look at, and when I was asked divinity in action, putting that into action, how long we've been holding these two different worlds, right? Oh, and all of the
a lot. Yeah.
You work a lot with initiations, right?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so, you're so cute, because that's one of my favorite topics to talk about, because for me personally, that word initiation changed my life in such a dramatic way. And I remember when I first stepped onto what I call a mystery school path, and basically a mystery school path is one where we are invited into a process of metamorphosis and deep transformational change, applying and using certain techniques to shift consciousness, right? That's how we can understand it. And we know who we are when we're going in, but we don't know who we're going to be when we come out. And that's the definition of a rite of passage or being in a mystery school, is that we're held in that process. And the world is in its mystery school initiation right now of remembrance of what that means. So I got very lucky about 15 years ago to meet a teacher and a mentor. You know how we get these amazing moments where we get to meet somebody who is lamp lighting our path. And I really pray that everybody gets to meet somebody who can do that for them, because I truly believe that we need that. We need those people who are holding the light for the rest of us to go on a path to discover and remember who we are. And I met a mentor, and she was from the 13 Moon Mystery School, and I'm an ordained priestess in that lineage. And she said to me this very seminal thing, and it was very simple, as wisdom tends to be, right? Super simple. And she said to me, Kalila, that's the other name I go by, Elayne Kalila. She said, life is the initiation.
Yes.
Life is the initiation. You are the initiator and you are the initiation. Whatever it is that happens in the seeming outpicturing of your life is here for you to awaken. Now, this is a very difficult concept because it goes into spiritual bypass and it goes into all kinds of things. So I want to unpack it a little bit with you because it's really important that we understand what it means. So for me, what it means is not that all the things that have happened in my life that are horrifying and really painful should have happened to me. Not that I deserved them, not that I condone them, not that they should have happened to me, right? So really want to make that distinction. However, all those things that have happened in my life have been opportunities for me to decide who I'm going to be.
Yes.
And continue to be that in every day. And what that really means is that I become the author of my own story. I become the protagonist of my own movie, my own drama. And every day I'm given an opportunity. And this is where I really come down to the simplicity of divinity in action, which is I'm given the opportunity to choose whether or not to open my heart or close my heart. And now that sounds super simple. But it's not an easy task and it's not an easy path. So the initiation is for us as a planet, we're going through a planetary initiation, which is really potent. Which will we choose? Will we choose to keep going with the story that we've been stuck in? And for any of you who look at the media out there, the movies and the television programs that are obsessed with continuing this story of conflict and war and destruction and hatred and separation and fear and right, we can see it. It's there.
Yeah.
Or do we choose to encompass a new story? And I think that we're in a real nexus point in terms of a planetary initiation that obviously is fractalized down to our individual initiations about what we choose each and every day. And we're being awakened to remember that we are a choice, even when we appear to not be inside systems of oppression, systems of privilege, systems of white supremacy, all the things that we are in systemically, even though we feel that we're trapped in those, we are still a choice as to who we show up as within that on a daily basis. And that for me, in my life was a radical turning point into understanding why I was here, right? And what it was to be called to a purpose that was greater than who I was, and to acknowledge the part of me that had been stuck in the old story of powerlessness, that I couldn't change the world, who I was just one person. What the heck could I actually do to change anything? And I think a lot of us feel that way, right? Because the problems in this world are so big. Like, how can we, you can't get your head around the climate change. I'm sitting here right now. We've just gone through this incredible storm here in California. We all got flooded. Now it's snowing. In the summer it was, we all know what's going on. Mother is shifting. How do we get our heads around how to be with that? And we can come down to that individual place, Katrina, where I think many of us get overwhelmed. And you mentioned that. And it's like, what I've realized is that I, through making choices each and every moment, I am creating the world that I'm choosing to vision and dream into. So that is, for me, the nexus point of an initiation is it gives the power back to me. It makes me realize that I am sovereign in my own power to choose who I will be and the actions that I will take to create the world. There's this beautiful book by a guy called Charles Eisenstein, and he's a fabulous New Thought thinker, radical, and he has a book out and it's called The More Beautiful World We Know Is Possible. And I always hear that. I'm such a genius title because it's embedded in me. And I believe that we're here in the initiation to create the more beautiful world that we know is possible.
Wow. I really appreciate how you bring it into the simplicity of opening our hearts or closing it. For me, the heart is a massive gateway. And those of us that continue to move through these initiations, remaining, with our hearts open, we find that we're holding more of what I call living life. And in that, we're touching more of life. We're touching more of creation. We're able to, just by our movements, as you're speaking, just by making those choices, we're opening up realms of possibilities. And it is incredible to know that how just one of us just by taking those simple choices, starts to shift things. And then when we're held in a space with others that are also choosing to do that, it amplifies it.
That's right.
And it's incredible to witness what is possible through the gateway of the heart, and how this resonance, when we're coming together in that field, how it begins to engage with the world, how it begins to birth new possibilities, for the weather, for the earth. And also our connection into the earth grows stronger, so we can listen even better, right? So then we can be in even more communication with each other. And we really, for me, I see it as returning back to our true essence and being able to move here and create in the way that we were designed. But I love the simplicity of opening the heart or closing, because that intersection, and from my experience, as that those of us that are birthing new ways of being, new systems, that we're getting a whole lot of it at once. So that takes a level of mastery, that takes a level of showing up and being able to make those choices and being able to be, responsible, right? And even accountable for what it is that we're speaking, what it is that we're creating. Is there any information or insight that you have for those that are holding things and they know it? And a lot of times they want to shy back. They want to pull back even more because it's coming so fast.
Yeah.
Oh, these initiations are so back.
Well, I was just writing something about this last night because, you've caught me at the edge of a metamorphic process myself. And I think that this is the thing, is those of us who are called to hold spaces for others, we're not exempt to the metamorphic, right? And so really, when you choose to step into leadership in whatever way that looks like, we were talking about gatekeepers earlier on, but, whether you're gatekeeping, holding space, gathering energy, working energetically, working with others, drawing us together into healing fields or activating fields of energy, we are in it. And we're not just in it, we're amplified in it, because when you bring a group consciousness together and you're focalizing, what I call focalizing the center point, you actually become the transmitter in that, right? So yes. And I was just writing about this last night because I was like, okay, I'm, over the solstice and Samhain from last year, I work with the Celtic Wheel of the Year. That's part of my heritage. And I think I did this ceremony 7 times. And the ceremony was called Shed Your Skin and Shine Your Light. It was about letting go of the old aspects of self, right? And it's very much the rite of passage we're in, letting go of the old skins to allow there to be more radiance to shine from within. Well, so, people kept asking me if I would do this ceremony in different places. And I was a yes, because I was feeling highly creative within it. I created a spoken word piece of music and track to it. And anyway, suffice it to say that when you repeat something in coherent resonant space ceremonially that many times, you are communicating with the field, your higher self, and the whole field. And what has happened for me is that it's accelerated and amplified my own journey. And just this last week, I've been really shown what it is that's done, like the skin that I'm here to shed. And it's a little intimidating.
Yeah.
It's a little much. I'm like, oh no, not, this thing, the pot has been stirred. I consciously stirred that pot on behalf of everybody that I was holding, but I'm also in the pot.
Yeah.
Right. And I get it. So I just want to put my heart out to all of you who are being courageous enough to step into a deeper soul calling of why you're here, and to begin to express that and gather other people around it, because it does amplify your own journey. And what I will say to that is remembering that's what's happening, remembering that you are at choice, remembering that you can choose to learn how to turn the flame down a little bit, to modulate the flame of your own catalyzing transformation, not seeing it as being, oh, I'm losing my mind, I'm going crazy, but really seeing it as being like, oh, I'm clearing the next level of my own my work, we call it Negredo, right? Shadow, in order to be able to stand more fully in the work. This is the work of the path. When, we are having to negotiate and navigate extremely difficult shadow material.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that we have to live our lives there, but it does mean that we have to engage with it. And so I think part of holding the vision of something new is to be able to also hold the part of you that is dying. You know, for me, there is a connection, deep connection between the cycle of life of, you know, birth, life, death, and rebirth. And that in our lifetime, a rite of passage marks a conscious death of who we have been into a rebirth of what now is possible. We cannot birth something new until we have let go and made space. And that goes down to the incredibly mundane level, right? You can't get more in the closet until you take something out of the closet.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's the metaphor on every level of our being, right? You cannot get any more dishes in the sink until you take some dishes out of the sink. It's like, that's kind of where we are. And I think that there is some compassion that's needed and some humility.
Yeah.
That we're all in this very extraordinary moment of humanity's evolution, and we don't know where it's going. And if anybody tells you that they do, I don't believe it. We don't. We're in the mystery. We don't know where it's going. We just know we have to take the next step.
Yeah.
And the next step is always being shown to us if we have the courage to actually lean into it. So that's what I would say.
Oh, so powerful. I appreciate the analogy of the closet, because I was just thinking about my closet. Like, how did this?
Me too,
okay.
honey.
Okay.
There's some definite things that need to go out of that closet, right? Metaphorically and physically.
Yes. And I also fully resonate with being at that right there in that metamorphosis. January opened so massively. It was just like, boom, hit.
Right?
All the way through January.
Okay. I know. And we're sitting right at the first turn of the wheel. We're going to be in Imbolc in my calendar on February 1st, which is really the new year for me. It's the beginning of the new year. And it's, you know, I don't know. I'm in the, this is a lot moment, right? And I know I'm not alone. And that's part of it, is for any of us who are doing this work to remember that you're not alone. And we have to not just find each other, but also find our connection into our own inner realms, our sanctuary of self and connection to higher self or divinity, whatever you want to call that, you know. And for me now more than ever, it's like, what I'm being asked this question, so maybe I should ask it to everybody else, which is, you know, I was given a seed word at the beginning of the year through meditation, and it kind of blossomed into some other words. But the first word I was given was inhabit. And I, you know, Katrina, it was very funny because I looked at the word and I was like, well, that's not a very sexy word. Give me something a little bit more magical than inhabit. Like, inhabit what? And so then I sat with the word inhabit, and I was like, okay, so to inhabit. And then I started to realize that, you know, the other synonyms of inhabit, and the root of the word inhabit comes from to dwell, or to reside within, or to abide, or to belong to. And then I started to feel, I've been yerping on all of last year about this word embodiment. We're going to unpacking that, because it's like, well, what the heck does to embody something mean? Yeah. And then I was like, I'm given another angle on this. And so one of the things I'm inviting in my spaces and with all those who are working with me currently is for us to examine and to be in contemplation about, how do you inhabit your life? And to inhabit, right? To inhabit your life means, how do you actually reside in your life, in yourself, in this world that is so like, overwhelming? How do we actually inhabit ourselves and be in this world and not be completely overrun by it, but at the same time not jump out of it and spiritually bypass and just go over here and go, oh, everything's fine? Because you know what? Everything is fine, but everything's also not fine simultaneously.
Yeah. Which is,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean,
that makes perfect sense. You know, a lot of mine is, you know, the neutralization of polarity. So being able to be in that middle ground continuously and breathe. Nothing lasts forever. What am I seeing?
Isn't that challenging? It's so challenging sometimes to get into that space. Like you're doing this movement with your hands of bringing the polarities, the either or, the black or white, the thinking, but to sit in the middle point, that is exactly my work too. And it's let's not be, Pollyanna-ish about it, because it's difficult to do that.
Yeah.
It's actually a really masterful skill set to be able to not react one direction or the other, but to come to the middle point,
Mhm.
to go back to that word, that's that word inhabit. How do you inhabit the center of your being? I recorded a spoken word track last year. I'm a spoken word artist as well as a priestess. And part of what I recorded last year, I recorded a track called Center. And it was a lot to do with coming to the hearth, to the home, to your center point, to your inner sanctuary.
Really.
And how do we center there as a
Yeah.
real practice of
Yeah.
inhabiting ourselves? And there's that other word in there, right? Habit. Well, that's such a word, because what it really points to is all the habits that we have that we really are kind of in an addictive cycle with. And that's been part of my Negredo has been, and there's this habit and this habit. And I've been really reviewing how I am using my time. How do I inhabit time? And where am I in my addictions to avoid being more available to my life?
Wow.
Ooh, so that might be something to drop into here for all of you to contemplate, since I'm here speaking it, right? Which is, what are the habits that are actually addictions to avoid listening to the directives of your higher self?
Ooh, that's a big one. And I fully resonate with that. You know what? Yeah. I've been looking at the same thing because I really value time. Like even the concept of time, like, oh, thank goodness for this.
Right. Right.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there was so much in, as you were talking about the core and the centering, and something that I've seen with those that are going through massive initiations, and how important it is that we are inhabited within our core and really developing and creating from there, because it's so easy to be pulled into streams if your core is not solid. It's so easy to come off center and to find yourself creating in another direction, and nothing like unraveling things in this energy right now. So I'm appreciating that. And I love this inhabit, because a lot of people speak about embodiment, and I feel like the word has really lost its essence. And I've been in that question myself, like, well, what is the word? What is it that we are doing here? How can we communicate about this going forward? When we look at the wisdom of the soul, when we look at how that we're inhabiting that wisdom, how it is that we're bringing that into our life, how are we dancing with that? How are we speaking with that? And what habits, are we still playing out that aren't allowing us to really anchor that?
Right. And there's, and this is where the humility comes in, and the humor, right? I love humility, humor. That's a big part of how I move in the world, because our human condition is quite absurd and ridiculous and quite comical, in addition to being all the other things, right? There is that part of it, which is like, wow, okay. And for me, the humility and the humor of being able to giggle at it and go, oh my goodness, okay, yes, I see that I do that thing that actually is to avoid being with my inner knowing of what I'm being called toward. It's a way of like, I'm going, oh, la, 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 I hear you, right? But the truth of the matter is that we're all at that to some degree. That's part of our humanity. This, I'm on a path of constant remembrance and forgetting. And we can judge ourselves for forgetting, or we can just love ourselves in the forgetting and be like, oh yeah, so I forgot, and now I'm remembering. And sometimes the initiations are a little difficult because they wake us up a little rudely and go, oi, you over there, did you forget? And sometimes they're a lot more gentle, but I think it really helps for us to recognize that we're all in that, and that there is no one of us who's still down here in the world of form who doesn't forget, because that's the nature of being here. Is that we get pulled, like you said, pulled into things. We lose our center, and then we have to go, oh, I lost my center. And rather than saying, oh, I shouldn't have lost my center, the path I'm on is more like, wow, I lost my center. Okay, let's love myself right there then. And let's see, where's the center? Let me come back and find it. And, my pathway to that is a daily practice of just noticing, and sometimes I don't notice, and that's okay. Sometimes I have to be reminded, right? And I think we're here And that goes back to your whole notion of, gatekeepers and people who are like, leading the way, or, we're all kind of walking this path. And I think the beautiful part of it is, and what I've found certainly in the community that I get to be part of and curate is, that, and this came to me years ago, but it is through the eyes of the other that I remember who I am. That you have a part to play in my remembrance of who I am, because we can't do it alone. And that's the other fantastic realization that we're in through this technology, is it suddenly you and I are able to sit in this intimate conversation with each other in a way that, 10 years ago wasn't as possible. 10 years is nothing. And suddenly now we're like, and through the horrifying trauma of COVID, one of the gifts that we've come out with is that it increased our interconnectivity in this way. And now everybody's comfortable being in this realm because we had to get comfortable with it, right? So there's something about this. We're not just inhabiting ourselves alone. We're inhabiting ourselves in communities of beings that are coming together with very similar, what I would call fractal downlines of jobs to do here, and there's a part of me that's really pragmatic, Katrina, and I'm very, I do like a nice job description. Yeah. And there is part of me that has been all about sort of giving language to what these new jobs are that, I always joke and I say, like, back in school when I was, and this is a long time ago now, but back in school, I remember taking a careers test, back in England. And a careers test was essentially you went to a careers counselor, they gave you a questionnaire, and they were going to come up with what your career was meant to be, right? I remember going back in after to get the results, and the woman looks at me and she said, "Well, I've got great news for you." And I said, "Oh, good." And she said, "From what you've answered, it's very clear that you're artistic and creative." And I was like, "That feels true, yes." Yeah. She said, "So we think that a great option for you would be beauty school, right? And you could go and be a beautician and a hairdresser. You'd probably really like that." And I remember when she said it, I looked at her and I had that feeling of like, yes, that's really true. And then the other part of me was like, but what happens if I want to be in front of the camera? What happens if I actually feel like I'm meant to be the one in front of the camera? Is there any option for that? And I remember saying that to her. And she said to me, she said, "Oh," and this was like 30 or 40 years ago. I don't know how old. Yeah, 40 years ago. She says to me, "Darling, look, no," she said, "best get a trade so then you can always make some money. And then you can always do that in your spare time. You could act, you could be in the Amdram, you could be in the Amateur Dramatic Society." Now, you see, the thing is, there was nothing wrong with that, but it was the only thing available. There wasn't like another thing that described what I was meant to do, and I always joke and I say, had there been an option that said priestess, ceremonialist, I'd have been like, that's me. Maybe that's me. I like all those things, but that was never there. So part of my mission, and I know this is probably true for many of you that are here, part of my mission has to be to give language and words to these social roles and functions that haven't either have existed in history, ancient times, and we're now remembering them, or are entirely new, like sacred architects, like, I talk about, right? And you talk about that too. So but we need language to be able to actually ground that, to give it, and a lot of my work has been about giving language to those women who know that they're priestesses and they got stuck in being psychologists and therapists and healers of other types, right? Because that was the only option that was available to them. And not just giving language to it, but giving it respect and dignity and reverence, because a lot of what we carry as the psychic oracles, seers, energy workers has been deeply, deeply misunderstood, and it has been dangerous. Especially for us as women to claim, because this was what we got ostracized for throughout history. This is what we got burned at the stake for. This is literally what we got exiled for. And I know many of the beings that I work with, it's a lot to do with that, coming out of the closet around it and being, and that's still very scary for a lot of women who are in environments where, to talk about energy or to talk about divinity in any other way outside of organized religion is going to come up with, resistance from their families, from their communities. And so I really wanted to say that I know the power of us coming together to help one another to stand in the truth of who we are. and to have it be not just accepted, but actually respected and understood.
Yes, absolutely. That takes me into, you speak about no longer about setting in the temples, and I know so many people that kind of like practice kind of hermit, like in their own little spaces, and the opportunities that we have when we come together are just incredible. And I also am appreciating the language. I see words as vehicles.
That's right. That's right.
And when we utilize the vehicles and we're able to put our own essence into these vehicles, and when we're really in tune and in resonance and operating through the heart, through that gateway, we have the ability to feel and to discern, to move and navigate in those ancient ways that have been suppressed, that we have been pulled away from or separated out. And they've been given other names and titles that we've been kind of pushed into as you're speaking, like here, this is who you are, or this is what you are, or
yeah. And the thing is, in another life, that would have been absolutely right. That it wasn't that she was actually wrong. That's been a big part of my life. I was trained as an actor, and I did set design and costume design and make, all of it. I did all of that. And I came out the other side understanding that my real love of theater and performance was to do with its transformational quality, was to do with the fact that it was a vehicle of social change, of psychological change, of spiritual change, right? And that was where my real yearning was, to create ritual and ritual theater, ceremonial spaces where that could happen.
Absolutely.
Right.
And even those pathways, I always say the code's in the experience. You find your code in the experience. You created this experience. Why would you choose that path? Like, what is really there? And the same thing with initiations when we get into those places. Like, whoa, okay, so I know that I'm going to access my code through this experience. It's hurting right now. I don't necessarily like it. I can honor that, but I can breathe a little deeper and look a little further at what is this really? What are you showing me? I surrender. I've gotten really good at surrendering.
There's something really interesting in what you're saying there, Katrina, and I love it. And it's this, for me, as you're speaking, what I really receive is, some of the most difficult experiences, or where we come to an awareness of how we are being shown who we've been, and we no longer choose to be that way or that person, right? That game is up. Those moments when we have those awarenesses, it's incredibly uncomfortable for the ego. And it's a little overwhelming because there's a dismantling internally that has to happen then. And there is a place of not knowing, right? And there's a place of like, well, I don't know how to do it any other way because that's the only way I've known how to do it. And I'm scared. And I'm scared if I do it a different way, everything's going to fall apart, or, and it's really real, right? And I know now, even when that's happening, there's a part of me that is witness to that, like you said, that can understand that there's a code, or as you would call it, or for me, it's a gift that's awaiting me there, that I'm actually, I have a very mythic imagination and I'm a storyteller at heart. And so for me, there's always the mythic drama is always playing out. And so for me, in that mythic drama, I'm on the treasure hunt and I'm going through some scary experience with some monster that I just encountered, right? But the monster is the gate guardian to this, this treasure chest of things that I have forgotten that he's been holding for me for thousands of years. And I'm now coming to reclaim them because it's time for me to get that next piece of the puzzle, right? It's my very Indiana Jones. I watched a lot of those movies as a kid. But however your imagination works, metaphorically speaking, we're all on that quest. That is the universal, hero's journey, heroine's journey. The hero's journey being we're going out into the quest in the world. The heroine's journey, we're being taken down deep into the underworld inside of self. Those two journeys are always happening. And when you start to be able to give language to that and see that and feel that, for me, that has made all the difference in the world about how I can actually then hold that process in myself and not become overwhelmed by it. Because I remember when I was younger and these things would happen, I would immediately go into a victim spiral. And I don't judge myself for it, but I would immediately go, why is this happening to me? This always happens to me. This used to be what I would say as a young person. I don't believe it. It's not fair that this is happening to me. Right? And I would get stuck in that suffering place. And that made it even worse. And not only did it make it worse, but inevitably what happened is I would get another initiation of the same flavor because I didn't get it that time because I was really resisting and being upset about it, and they would get hit over the head again by the 2x4 and be like, I don't know why this is happening. I had so much compassion for that younger part of me. Oh my gosh, life was not easy for her. So, hopefully as we band together, we help each other go, remember, it's okay. This is just, you're just in it right now. Like you said, this too shall pass. This will transform. This will shift. Can you trust and surrender to that? And I'm not going to say that that's easy to do. It is not easy to do. It's simple, but it's really hard. Sometimes you're really attached.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I see it too. It's simple, not necessarily easy. It's like, hey, I'm complicating this. Go back to simple, And I feel that I work a lot with integrations. So soul integrations, these aspects that are continuously fighting it or wanting to go into victim or, that are struggling. And it's like, and right as we're like right at our prime, that little thing can come up and be like, hey,
I know, right?
About this.
Oh no, not that again. I know, it's so extraordinary to me. I mean, I sat as a therapist for, I don't even know, 15 years maybe. I was a psychotherapist in private practice. And so I listened a lot. Like when I look back on it now, I'm like, good Lord, talk about an initiation right there. But I must have listened to thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of people's stories about where they were stuck. Because essentially that's why people go to therapy, right? They're stuck in something they don't want to be stuck in. And I realized that there was actually probably only 7 stories and there was 1 million permutations on those 7 stories, because it really is a limited amount of human experience.
Yeah.
Right. And what it gave me a real feeling for was just how that no one gets away with it in this lifetime. Nobody is going to get away without being hurt, without having their heart broken, without going through loss, without going through pain, without having some experiences that are extraordinary and off the charts and some that are really dark and horrifying, and we're going to have a whole gamut, and we do not have any rhyme or reason as to why some get this and some get that, and to actually hang out in that is not useful. Because and I always remember, this was a therapist teacher of mine years and years ago. And I remember him saying to us all in class, this is, I don't know, probably 30 years ago, he said, we never know why one person's broken toenail is another person's broken heart. We're all so different in how we process and experience what happens in our lives. And so that to me was obviously it stayed with me because it was a truth, right? Which is that no one of us gets to go through this without being broken apart.
Yeah.
Do we deserve it? It's not a case of deserving it. It just is. It is part of the human experience. And I think part of what we're learning, hopefully, and those of us who are gatekeeping and walking these paths, hopefully we're learning that those moments of being broken open are actually how we learn how to be human.
Well, I just want to take a moment to fill into that. God, it's so important that we feel and we know and we experience being human.
That's right. That's right.
All of these initiations with all of the soul wisdom, with all of these pieces, it continuously comes back to this. And we never know which one of those experiences is going to be the catalyst to that full transformation or that full opening. And I really feel that's the gift of being here. Being able to feel that and to move through it and to show up every day willing to be there, to feel and to have an open heart. I feel like we've traversed so much. There's so much richness here. And thank you so much for opening your heart and really bringing through some very important pieces. I can feel the transmissions. I can feel the hearts of all of those that are here for Divinity in Action. And may this truly serve you. The little nuggets that were here or the aha moments that even I'm like fully in here with you. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your life, for your word, for your truth, for your walk, for your elegance, for your play, for your joy.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to speak into this beautiful gathering that you're curating and bringing together. And I know will sow seeds. And that's how, we never know. That's the other thing. The last thing I want to say as we're closing is never doubt the impact that you have.
Absolutely.
I really want to say that because I am in the position of being very privileged in this. And I know that I broadcast a lot of things out there to the world and I hold a lot of spaces. And I know because people have told me that there's just, sometimes they'll just hear one thing that you've said and it has literally catalyzed them into a new direction. You don't know. And that's why we're here, to make sure that everybody actually steps forward to share the codes that they are carrying, because we all need the codes in order to complete something in our own selves.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That is a beautiful way to be closing out this space and just giving gratitude for every heart that's here, for every code that's, being ignited in this now, and for this opportunity we have to put our divinity into action. And it can be as simple as speaking your truth in the moment.
Totally. Well, thank you for having me, and blessings and love to everybody who's listening.
Yes. Bye for now.
Oh, beautiful hearts, let's take a moment here to breathe into yet another powerful message from our Divinity in Action alchemical movement. I hope you found the teaching shared in this episode to be enlightening and empowering. Also, that you will take space for yourself to work with what was offered for your discovery and growth. Once again, I invite you to unlock your divinity through the wisdom of our speakers and to harness this beautiful energy to your benefit that will increase abundance, clarity, and freedom in every aspect of your life. By experiencing divinity in action, we will break free from past programming and conditioning and fully embody our true selves.